Raider Nation, let's get it.
Jacobs is on his way. The Raiders are going to win this game.
Let's go.
Then after you have great coaches, you get great players. You have a great organization, and you tell them one thing: just win, baby.
What is good, Raider Nation? It's your boy Raider Alex back with another live show for you guys. Salute to the 13 people in the chat already. On this video, what I just wanted to touch on real quick is I wanted to first I'll go into briefly the whole Josh Jacobs situation, my quick thoughts and opinions on that. I also get I want to know what you guys think about the whole situation. To me, it was expected, but after that too, I wanted to touch on training camp as well, specifically more certain players that I'm looking forward to seeing in training camp. Also, some positional battles, things to keep your eye out for in training camp that has already officially started, and also in the preseason as well. So that is essentially what the gist of this show will be about. Shout out to Afakasi Raiders. Salute, Raider Alex. Been a while, my friend. Just tapping in real quick. Hope you are well, brother. Yes, sir, man. I thank you for pulling up. I'm glad to see you here. Alex Torres was good, man. Salute to you being in there. And yeah, we got 13 people. I'm just gonna wait a little bit longer to make sure get a couple more people in the panel before I jump into the live show. Also, too, can you guys hear me good? Is the audio okay? Put a 1 in the chat if you guys can hear me. Okay. The 805 Raider says, "What's up?" Okay, yes, you good, brother. Perfect. Sounds good. All right, without further ado, let's just jump into the topic of the video. So I just briefly wanted to touch on the whole Josh Jacobs situation. I'm sure probably some of you guys are really tired of hearing about this over and over, but I just wanted to touch on it because it's been about like a month since I did my last show. I did one about Josh Jacobs, what I thought was going to end up happening, and ultimately it did end up happening. Josh Jacobs, at the end of the day, did not end up – well, the Raiders and Josh Jacobs did not end up getting to a final agreement for the contract situation. So at this point, Josh Jacobs essentially has two different options going into the 2023 NFL season. He could either hold out. He might miss some games. He might even hold out for the whole season. We'll just have to see exactly what happens there. Or he can play on the franchise tag. So with this being said, I mean, it's something to keep into consideration because it looks like Josh Jacobs is not going to be involved in training camp. He's essentially the holdout process has begun for him. So, one thing I really am curious about is, how long will this holdout really drag out to? Will it go all the way until the regular season? Will he end up missing some games? That's something that, definitely you should keep your eye out on. And, it's kind of interesting for me because with this whole Josh Jacobs situation too, regardless if we would have got a deal done, I was still really excited about the running backs going into training camp and the preseason. We got 3 different young running backs that we'll definitely get into, and it's something that now with Josh Jacobs, essentially we're not sure when his expected return will be. He may end up holding out for the entire season. He may end up missing some games. If that's the case, that's going to be huge for these running backs. That's going to, well, for one, they need to be prepared in case that that eventually ends up happening. And also, too, that'd be a huge opportunity for them as well. And also, Alex Torres, I think we can do so good with our 3 rookies and 2 veteran running backs. I mean, it's at that point, if we're gonna go without Josh Jacobs for the regular season, that's probably the way they're gonna end up going. They're gonna try to do this whole running back by committee, and the 3 different running backs we have, I definitely like them. They all 3 of them have like 3 different characteristics, different types of running backs as well. I also really like Amir Abdullah. I thought he was a little bit underutilized last season. And the one running back I just don't know why he's really on the roster is Brandon Bolden. He really didn't contribute last season. I mean, well, last season it was kind of a waste of it was really a waste of a roster spot. I feel like, especially with Jacobs dominating the way he did. But at the same time, I feel like Josh McDaniels and this regime did not expect Jacobs to play that be as dominant as he was last season. So that's definitely something to keep into consideration. Afakazi fire hat, have that one myself. Don't wear it game day, but I usually wear it casually if I'm in the mood or color coordinating. Yeah, I definitely hear you, man. Like on game day, it's usually strictly the black and white one, right? But right now it's the off season. It's kind of slow. Sometimes it's good to switch it up with the colors. I got the blue one in the back too. I got like a green one, which I don't know. Some people don't like the color Raider hats, but sometimes it's good to just switch it up a little bit. Do we really depend on Josh Jacobs? We need the next man up. And yeah, that's true. I mean, I think the running game is not going to necessarily depend fully on Josh Jacobs, because at the end of the day, I think last year our offensive line was pretty good when it comes to run blocking. And really, that's going to be the biggest thing for us moving forward, because even if Josh Jacobs comes back, right? Even if he can, he's 100% healthy and all that. If the O line can't open up the holes, the running lanes for the running backs to hit, then he's just not going to be as successful as we really want him to be. And then also too, I mean, what do you guys think about Josh Jacobs? So if he holds out up until week 1, which if I had to guess, I think that's what's going to happen. I think Josh Jacobs will be ready by week 1, and basically at that point he would probably miss essentially all of training camp. Do you guys think that will hurt his early on production when it comes to his play, potentially some injuries, or him not performing the way we know he can perform like he did last season? Remember last season when Derek Carr he basically sat out the entire preseason, and the first month or so he was really rusty. Not only that, he was in a new system, so that is we should have kind of expected that, but something to keep into consideration too. I will say with running backs, it's not quite the same when it is with quarterbacks. You have to be a lot more in tune to be a quarterback, to get the accuracy right, to get the plays right. But something to keep in mind too, because also this especially on the offensive side of the football, we do have a lot of new personnel that can we can add different type of plays just due to the players we have now, due to we got a guy like Trey Tucker who can add a lot of pre-snap motions, that type of wrinkles to our offense. We also got Michael Mayer. So if Josh Jacobs misses out on training camp, maybe that might affect the overall chemistry of this offense moving forward in week 1. But let me know what you guys think about that in the chat. But something to definitely keep into consideration. And the next thing I wanted to touch on too was let's talk a little bit about training camp going into the Las Vegas Raiders season. So one thing about training camp is the rookies officially reported to training camp this Thursday, and it looks like the veterans will return. They will report to free agency next week sometime. I think it's July 25th is when they officially report. So one thing about free agency one thing about training camp that I noticed thus far is that Tyree Wilson so far, he's not participating in training camp, and that's mainly due to the foot injury that he suffered back in college, with the Texas Tech Raiders, and that's one thing that I'm not gonna necessarily overreact about that, but that is a bummer just because for him coming into the league, it's for these rookies too, because not only him, it's also Byron Young that's gonna miss some time in training camp. One thing about when you're going into um, when you're going into your rookie season, you really should get as much reps as possible in training camp, and that's just going to overall help the developmental process of them moving forward. But I don't necessarily think it's a major red flag. I assume what the Raiders organization is just going to plan to do is they essentially just want to make sure he's going to be 100% physically for week one. That way he can be ready to go week one. But something that I noticed so far. Afakazi Raider says, really need one of those young cats to step up. Zamir, Britton Brown, Abdullah, McCormick. Yeah, that's for sure, man, because and I am pretty excited to see how Zamir White can translate into his second year of the NFL. I mean, his rookie season, I think wasn't. I think he only ended up getting 17 touches total, and mainly that was due to Josh Jacobs being so dominant throughout the regular season. I mean, it's hard to get these other guys involved when Josh Jacobs, for the majority of the year, was leading the league in rushing. He had the hot hand, so you got to feed a guy like that. But yeah, definitely we need one of these guys to step up, and I'm definitely excited to see them in the preseason, see what they can do moving forward. But just jumping back to the whole Tyree Wilson situation. So one thing about Tyree Wilson that I will say is when the Raiders were on the board at 7th overall, he was not my first choice. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. My first choice, I really wanted us to end up selecting Jalen Carter. I thought he was the best man available on the board. Not only that, the thing I would have liked about a guy like Jalen Carter was I think week one he would have been ready to be a starter. And Tyree Wilson, it doesn't look like he's going to be a week one starter, which it's not necessarily the end of the world per se. But one thing I will say about Tyree Wilson is, especially when you get drafted that high, 7th overall, he has to definitely play a good amount of snaps this season. And the most ideal thing for me would be get him on that field starting as soon as possible. That way, he can just start his developmental process as soon as possible. And not only that, too, I think with the drafting of another defensive end on the opposite side of Max Crosby, one thing that I would really like from that is I think that could help Chandler Jones have a much bigger year this year, because Chandler Jones, I mean, at this point of his career, he's not the same guy he used to be back with the Arizona Cardinals. We saw it looks like he's taken a step back, but that's also why you might get really excited with the drafting of Tyree Wilson, because at this point of his career, I don't think he's a 3-down defensive lineman. So if you can essentially just lower his snaps, I think he can be a lot more effective and efficient out there. But that's one thing I want to see with Tyree Wilson moving forward. I want to see a worst case scenario, I say like around mid-season, for him to be starting on the team, getting a lot of quality snaps out there. So, but that's what I see with the whole Tyree Wilson situation. I mean, let me know what you guys think as well. And also another rookie that was so far unavailable to report at training camp is our defensive tackle out of Alabama, Byron Young. And I think I saw that they expect him to report in about a couple weeks, so that's good. The earlier you can get him in training camp, learning the system under Patrick Graham, getting some football reps out there is going to be ideal. And Byron Young is also another rookie that I'm very excited to see next season, because the Raiders for a while they've been lacking that. They've been missing that dominant interior defensive lineman that can create some pressure and get to the quarterback. After looking at some film from Byron Young, he's actually, he's low key like a sleeper when it comes to getting to the quarterback. Now, will that translate to the next level? We'll just have to see. He's going to have to, there's going to be some bumps and bruises along the way, but he's a guy that could really, if those two rookies, if Tyree Wilson can perform well, if Byron Young can do well on that defensive line, you know, especially with Max Crosby there, that can really, revamp this defense moving forward. I mean, not just next season, but for years to come, since they're on that rookie deal. Because really, for me, it starts up front. If we can have a solid defensive line, if we can create pressure on them, then that's just going to help our back end. It's going to help the linebackers. It's going to help the secondary a ton. So that's definitely something that I'm definitely very excited to see moving forward. So, and then also too, I mean, I will say Tyree Wilson is a guy that, although I didn't necessarily, he wasn't the number one option on my board. It's still an overall solid pick just due to the positional need the Raiders have, because, like I said, Chandler Jones is on his way out. You can never necessarily have too many defensive linemen. And just the physical attributes alone from Tyree Wilson being 6'7", I think he's 275 pounds. That's just absolutely crazy how the physical attributes from him. So I wasn't too upset from the draft pick, but those two rookies, I definitely want to see how they can how soon they can get in training camp for us. But without further ado, we can let's jump into some of the positional battles that I'm pretty excited to see in this year's training camp. Feel free to, in the comment section down below, let me know what positions you guys are most interested and excited to see moving forward. But the first one I'm going to touch on is going to be the running backs. The running back group is very exciting just due to the fact of how many young players we have um, in the running back core. You got Zamir White, you got Britton Brown, and you also got a guy, undrafted free agent from last year, Sincere McCormick. So all these guys, there's a lot of potential there, and especially with the whole Josh Jacobs situation being very uncertain at the moment, these guys could have a big role moving forward for the Raiders in the next coming years, and it's going to be a battle for them to make the roster. Salute to the Raider critique. What's up, Alex? Hey, what's up, man? Good to see you, and shout out to you, man. I got your the critique patch a while ago, but I just want to let you know I got it, and I love it. Thanks for sending that over. Alpha Kasi. But yeah, when it comes to the running back group, that's definitely one of the positional battles that I'm definitely very excited to see moving forward. And let's talk about the first guy, um, that the first young running back, which is Zamir White. Now, Zamir White is a guy that we ended up drafting him last year in the NFL draft in the 4th round. I do like him as a player. Some people didn't love that we took a running back that early, but to me, that just showed me that it looked like the direction of this team moving forward was that they were planning the future without Josh Jacobs. I think they expected, and I think Zamir White also expected, that he was going to have a much bigger role in this offense last season. But as I said, with Josh Jacobs being in a contract year with him, trying to prove himself as well. I mean, he changed the plans of the running back group. So essentially, that led him to not get as much snaps as a lot of us probably anticipated. I think he only got like about 17 snaps, 17 carries last season. So, but just in general, I mean, Zamir White, he's definitely the front runner. I feel like to be the backup running back for this team moving forward. And of course, if Josh Jacobs isn't ready to go by week 1, this guy is likely going to be the number one running back on this depth chart, and he's going to be the guy that's going to get the majority of the snaps. Now, I will say when it comes to Zamir White, he's not your traditional bell cow running back. He's not the traditional three down running back like Josh Jacobs is. I mean, he never really showed it in college. He wasn't. He didn't get a whole lot of he didn't get the vast bulk of snaps at Georgia, which I can definitely kind of understand because the past couple years, Georgia and Alabama, their running back groups have been very stacked. So it's kind of hard to have one single running back continuously get 25, 30 carries a game. But he hasn't necessarily shown that he can be that bell cow type of running back. And also, too, one thing that I almost forgot about this, but one thing you do have to keep into consideration is his injury history. I know that's why a lot of people were a little bit on the fence of us drafting him last offseason was because of the injuries history. I think he's got two different ACL injuries thus far in his career, so that's something to keep into consideration if he ends up being our number one running back, just in case if Jacobs ends up just in case if he ends up sitting out. Shout out to Raiders content. We here in the mix. Hey, salute to you, man. Hey, shout out to Digital Press. What's good, Alex? My Cuban hermano. What's good, man? Good to see you present. Raiders content says running back by committee. Yeah, that's definitely if Josh Jacobs ends up sitting out, I think that's the approach they're gonna take. And it's at that point, it's really gonna be very dependent on the offensive line, how well they can continue to open up the running lanes for these running backs. They can be dominant against the run. I mean, I can see the running back by committee working here with the Raiders next season. Now, are you necessarily going to be able to replace the entire production of Josh Jacobs from last season? Maybe, maybe not, just because he had 2,000 all-purpose yards. That's definitely something to keep into consideration. But I will also say let's not act like Josh Jacobs, year in and year out was going to give you 2,000 all-purpose yards. I mean, we hope he can continue to do that, but before this season, before the contract year, where I'm sure he had a huge chip on his shoulder to prove this front office wrong and ultimately try to secure his long-term future. So yeah, I mean that's something also to definitely consider. Raider Critique says, I do want to see more of Brown. We didn't see much of him last year. That is true. I mean, we saw him a little bit in the preseason, but yeah, I mean, same with the Zamir White. It's going to be the same situation for all these running backs last year. As I said, having 5 running backs on the roster was definitely a waste last year, but that was mainly just due to Josh Jacobs. I guess surprising this front office and Josh McDaniels being so dominant, you just gotta feed the hot hand at that point, and that was literally Jacobs all of last season. But yeah, jumping back to the whole Zamir White thing. If I had to give a quick player breakdown of Zamir White, I would say he's a really good. He's more of a north and south runner. He's not going to be the type that's trying to make people miss in the backfield. He's got a really good initial burst to get to the first level to the line of scrimmage. And he's just that type that he's going to hit the hole and just go. He's got a good, decent change of pace too. Back in Georgia too, we saw that he had a decent ability to hit that home run. When it comes to like those long yard, touchdowns. He had a couple 40-yard touchdowns with Georgia. And that's one thing about Zamir White. Maybe what I saw a little bit was maybe he has questionable ball carrier vision when it comes to finding the holes, which we'll just have to see. He needs to get a little bit more snaps as well. I mean, we can continue to look at his film with Georgia, but ultimately, it may or may not translate ideally into the National Football League, but who knows? I mean, this could be a big year for Zamir White. I would expect his carries to go up just a bit, even if Josh Jacobs ends up returning for week 1. I personally don't think Josh Jacobs is going to have that same dominant season next year. Like, I think he had, I think it was about 1,600 rushing yards, and he had about 2,000 all-purpose yards. So, something to keep in mind as well. Raiders content says, what do you think about the Raiders picking up Marcus Epps, the safety from the Eagles? Yo, good question. If you haven't checked it out too, I did a film breakdown on Marcus Epps, and overall, I mean, I think Marcus Epps is he's not a guy that's gonna revamp your defense, but I think it is a very solid signing. You definitely need a lot of players like him throughout your roster. Good under the radar players. I feel like he had really good instincts coming downhill, stopping the run. He's also a pretty good hitter. I like how a lot of those hits, man. He was coming with that hit stick. And the good thing about that, man, is you can do that on a consistent basis. It kind of sets the tone for this defense moving forward. But yeah, Marcus Epps, I think overall is it was a good, decent signing. Like I said, he's not necessarily going to change our secondary, just him alone. But I definitely did like the signing. Raider Critique says secondary has been horrendous. Yeah, the past couple of years it's been really bad. I will say part of it has also been due to the fact that our defensive line could have been a lot better. As I said, if we can build that D line, I think it's going to help our secondary. But I will talk about the secondary a little bit more later on this video, because that is another positional group that I am excited to see in training camp, and definitely one that we should keep our eye on. But just staying on the whole running backs, I'm also going to get into Britton Brown as well. As Critique said, I mean, we didn't see a whole lot from him last season, but Britton Brown is a different style running back than Zamir White. I've been looking a little bit at the film from Britton Brown, and there's definitely is a lot of things to like from him. The guy is 6'1", 200 and about 200 pounds. And his running style is more of I noticed is more like an upright. He's a very upright, tall runner. Athletically, I didn't necessarily see anything that jumped off the screen for me, but he's got decent enough acceleration and speed, to hit the edge and also get to the second level. And one thing I did like about him, he's more of a downhill runner. And what I did notice with UCLA is a lot of times in those short yardage situations, the 3rd and 1s, the goal line situations, they put him in there, and he was pretty effective. Just getting a yard or two, which in the National Football League, that's just huge. You have to convert on 3rd down, which in the past has been something that the Raiders have struggled with. So if they could have a good running back like Britton Brown, a tall, upright runner that can be good in those situations, that's going to be great for this team moving forward on 3rd down, which is so crucial if you want to win in the National Football League. And also, too, I mean, one thing is Jimmy Garoppolo, that's one of the things that if you look at his stats on 3rd down and in the red zone, granted, that was with the 49ers. That may not translate with the Raiders in a different situation, but he's been very effective on 3rd and 3rd down in the red zone, which ultimately has been just a huge, huge issue for the Raiders when it comes to the past couple seasons. The Raiders, we've been able to move the ball pretty effectively and efficiently, but if you can't convert on in the red zone, if you have to continuously settle for field goals, that most definitely is going to affect the overall output of this offense. Raiders content says, I also like linebacker Robert Spillane. He finds the hole the running backs are going to, and he shut down Josh Jacobs last season. Yeah, that is true. He had a really good game against the Raiders. That is a very good point. I have to look up the exact statistics, but I think he had like 12 total tackles. He was pretty active in the stuff in the run. And he did pretty well that game. I mean, I'm sure that game had a lot of influence to the Raiders ultimately offering him a contract for 2 years, $9 million. I think they probably really liked what they saw from him. And, Robert Spillane's definitely a guy I want when I get a chance, I'm going to watch a little bit more film on. But it seems like his reputation is he's really good at stuff in the run and coverage. Maybe not as good, but and then also you talk to a lot of Steelers fans too. A lot of them, they did like Robert Spillane, but it was just a matter of a fact that the Steelers weren't going to match that offer that the Raiders ended up giving to him. So but that's definitely a guy that I will be excited to see next season as well, Robert Spillane. But yeah, I mean, just in general, Britton Brown is a guy that is very interesting as well, and he's one of those guys that I think he could potentially be a good third and one running back, downhill runner, just with that the the 6'1" frame he has. It just seems like sometimes he's just really good at just finding the soft spot on the offensive line and just like leaning forward for 1 or 2 yards, which can definitely be huge for us. And the next guy in this running back group that I wanted to talk about was last year's undrafted free agent, Sincere McCormick. Now, we didn't get a chance to see him last year, in the preseason or, at any point throughout the regular season. He was placed on IR, but he's expected to be back this year. And like I said, these young running backs we have, what I do like is all three of these guys got different characteristics, different skill sets, which is, definitely, if you're going to do that running back by committee, that's definitely something you're most definitely going to need, because, you're going to need different, skill sets and types of players for different scenarios and situations throughout the season. But, touching on Sincere McCormick, he's more of a smaller type of running back. He's about 5'9", 200 pounds. And he's a very shifty and speedy type of running back. He reminds me a little bit more of what, like, from the frame standpoint, he kind of reminded me of Jalen Richard, but a much faster version of Jalen Richard. When we drafted him back, like in 2016, Jalen Richard, that was kind of the running back I was expecting him to be, but he really didn't become that. He was mainly a really good pass blocker, which for this team, we're definitely going to need. And one thing also, too, that I forgot to mention with Britton Brown is he may be a good pass blocker, because at UCLA, they did use him a lot, blocking and passing downs, which, hopefully that can translate to the next level. But, pretty simple. If Britton Brown can be a good pass blocker, he will definitely make his way onto this roster up until this on this final 53-man roster. Raider Critique says, is he the shifty or more of a hitter? I assume you're talking about Sincere McCormick, but yeah, he's more of a shifty running back. He's going to be the guy that's going to he's more of a scat back type of running back. He's going to be good, a good change of pace type of running back. And he could potentially be really good in the backfield. That's going to be something that he's going to have to develop, but that could be really valuable for this team. But yeah, he's going to be more of the guy that, you need speed to, go on the edge. He's going to excel, in open space more than anything. So yeah, those are the three young running backs we have, but we also got two veterans on this roster. Amir Abdullah, I think, was going to make this roster just based on the fact that he also provides, valuable reps to the special teams. He can be a punt returner. He can be a kick returner for us. And as I said, I really did like Amir Abdullah last season. I think he did really good in those passing downs, catching out of the backfield. And I definitely, see him making his way onto this roster. And the last guy, Brandon Bolden, I don't know what you guys think. Do you guys think he's going to make the roster? I think more than likely he will. I don't know why they would have, brought him back if they didn't think he's going to be on the roster. He really didn't contribute very much last season. I think he had one touchdown week 1 against the Chargers, but after that, he really didn't do a whole lot. I think we're paying him like $2 or $3 million as well. I don't necessarily understand that. I assume that, he's really close with Josh McDaniels. He's probably like more of a mentor for these for the running back group, which, it feels like every single head coach, whether it be McDaniels, also Gruden had that as well. Usually got like one player where they're like you kind of question why are they on the roster? But for me, that's definitely Brandon Bolden. So, but yeah, I mean, the running back group is going to be very interesting to see in preseason, and it'll be interesting to see who shows out and who can ultimately make this final 53-man roster. But yeah, that's the first positional group that I am very excited to see is the running backs. The second one I wanted to touch on is going to be in the secondary department, and that's going to be the safeties for this team moving forward. We do have a lot of young safeties, and I feel like, the only one I could say that I think kind of has I would say like a guaranteed spot on this roster, and more than likely he's going to be a starter week one, is the veteran we ended up signing in free agency, which is Marcus Epps. To me, that's really the only guy I see that's, I guess you could say a lock to be on the field next season. But these other guys, especially at the free safety position, keep your eye out for free safety when it comes to Trayvon Merrick. We also drafted in the 5th round Christopher Smith out of Georgia, and if you haven't had a chance to do so, check out his film. I did do a film breakdown on him, but he's a very, very exciting prospect. He's a very high IQ football player. He was like the captain of that defense for Georgia last season. He's got championship pedigree. He has great football awareness. He's a smart football player just in general. Good tackler, and that's one thing that our general manager Dave Zeeler has touched on for several different times throughout the past couple off seasons, is the fact that the Raiders, especially on defense, they're looking for players that are versatile, that are smart, that are just high IQ football players, and that's everything that Christopher Smith possesses. And just the fact that we also got a guy like Isaiah Palomalu. We also drafted on. We also signed UDFA safety Jaden Grant out of Oregon State. And just the amount of draft pick we put in the safety room kind of shows me that they're not necessarily 100% sold on Trayvon Merrick. So hopefully, with us drafting Christopher Smith, that can kind of put light a fire under him, Trayvon Merrick, to perform well. And basically take that leap that we've all been waiting for. We were all excited when we drafted him. He had a pretty good rookie season, mind you. That was in a different system with under Gus Bradley. But that's definitely one thing to keep into consideration is the safety room is going to be a lot of competition. And it's going to be best man wins, I think, because Trayvon Merrick at this point, I mean, McDaniels, Ziegler, they did not draft him, so they're not necessarily completely invested in him, while Christopher Smith, they are. And it could be one of those situations where, Christopher Smith and Trayvon Merrick, they may be just as good as one another. But, you see in the National Football League, a lot of times, even when, you have a scenario, we got two players that are, basically the same when it comes to how good they are on the field. Usually they tend to lean towards the younger guy just because it's a better financial decision. You got more years on the rookie contract with him like that. But yeah, something to take into consideration: the free safety room and also the strong safety room. I'm definitely gonna be interested to see if our guy, at least my guy, UDFA signing Jaden Grant, can make this roster. He'll have to beat out Roger Teamer, but I think that's going to be one surprise player for me that's going to end up making the roster is Jaden Grant. Jaden Grant, to me, he's a little bit similar to Marcus Epps in the fact that he's a good downhill. He's good at coming downhill, stuffing the run, he's a very good tackler as well. He's also a very smart football player as well. Athletically, he's not necessarily the guy that that's going to really jump off your screens. The speed isn't anything necessarily off the charts or anything like that. He's good enough athletically, but at the same time, you don't have to be the most athletic, player to be a good safety out there. But Yeah, that's one guy I am interested to see is Jaden Grant out there, and I think also too he could be really really good in special teams. So that's a guy that just based on those attributes alone, he may find a way onto this roster. Raiders content says quarterback Brian Hoyer is too old to be quarterback. I really think we should hire him as an assistant quarterback coach because they brought him in to help the other quarterbacks learn the system. Yo, I definitely hear you. Like honestly, I would have rather drafted. Or maybe you could have drafted another, two young quarterbacks in this year's draft and kept them as a, like you said, more of a quarterback coach. But at the same time, I'm sure they at least want one veteran out there just in case, if Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt and these rookies just aren't up to speed on this offense, they need one guy that they know can at least be competent out there. And I assume for them, that's the familiarity with Brian Hoyer is all there. But yeah, kind of I guess you could say a questionable signing. But the Raider critique says, yeah, man, Brian Hoyer was just hired to hold the clipboard, not to mention the naughty thing. Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of that happens in the NFL. You just bring in guys that are familiar, that the coaches like, and I think that definitely was the case with Brian Hoyer. Kind of like how Nathan Peterman was to John Gruden. Yeah, exactly. And speaking of Nathan Peterman, I mean, does anybody know what's going on with him? I mean, is he still in the league? Let me know if you guys know, but I don't know exactly what ended up happening to Nathan Peterman after he ended up leaving, but Raiders content says Chase Garber still a real young quarterback. Oh yeah, that is true. That is true. Let me know what you guys think about Chase Garbers. Are you guys excited? Or are you guys high on him? But I don't know. I don't really see a whole lot with him, to be honest with you. But I've seen some people say that they're really high on Garbers. Did Marcus Peters already sign? No, he is not officially signed. I will touch on it briefly later on, but it looks like he's gonna come in next week for a visit. But everything seems to indicate that he ultimately will end up signing. But we'll just have to wait to know for sure. But yeah, that's one room that I was really excited about is the safety room. The other one I wanted to touch on as well is going to be the cornerback group as well, because when I look at the cornerback position right now for the Raiders, we don't necessarily have that one guy where we're just like, oh yeah, he's our number one starting outside corner. He's up here, everybody else is down here. We don't necessarily have one single defensive back in the cornerback room that fulfills that role for this team. Everybody, is you can make an argument that this guy's better, that this guy should start, but ultimately in free agency we got a lot of cornerbacks that are more versatile. And the one thing I don't necessarily like about the cornerback room as it stands right now is we do not have a lot of height at the cornerback position. I mean, we can just break it down real quick. Obviously we got a guy like Amik Robertson, who's short. We got a guy like we got Nate Hobbs. I think Nate Hobbs is about 6 foot. We also got Duke Shelley is about 5'11". I think David Long's right around 6 foot as well. So the cornerback group is not. When it comes to next year when we're going against bigger cornerbacks, taller wide receivers, that may be a mismatch for us moving forward, but yeah, I mean, I want to know what you guys' take is on the cornerback room right now as well. I mean, who do you guys think is going to be the starting cornerbacks next year for the Raiders? Right now as it stands, mind you, Marcus Peters may end up signing next week, so that could definitely change who's going to be the starters going into week 1. But right now, if I had to guess, I think it's going to be Nate Hobbs on the outside, and I think the second guy could be David Long. I see them probably going to start Tyler Hall in the slot, which, I think the one thing that's a little bit concerning to me, I don't know exactly how to feel about it is Nate Hobbs, because his rookie season, another guy too that did a lot better under Gus Bradley. He did a lot better in that system where he was primarily a slot cornerback. He did really well in that season, but last year they moved him to the outside cornerback, which I wasn't a huge fan of. We also didn't get to see him a whole lot as well. He was suffering with a hand injury that put him out of the field for a couple weeks. But that's based on everything I'm seeing. That's what I would guess would be the starting room for the cornerbacks next season. But yeah, I mean, then we also got our young rookie Jacorian Bennett, also a guy who's not, I think he's uh, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's a 5'11 as well. We also got Brandon Faison out there, but this cornerback room as well as the safety room is just wide open for me. I mean, it's just going to depend on who looks good out there in training camp, who can win the reps, and ultimately, I mean, also the preseason, how they end up looking out there as well. But you know cornerback room definitely something to keep your eye out on. Critique says, I think Peters left without a contract. I haven't heard anything. If I'll double check, but I don't think so. I think he's gonna plan to come in on Monday for a physical and a workout. And if everything goes well, then they'll more than likely end up signing him. But we'll just have to see. Critique says, I definitely want to see more of Chase Garbers. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it would be cool to see a little bit more of him. I mean, we'll get a chance to do that in preseason, but, me personally, I'm not super high on him, but we'll just have to see. Digital Press says, I don't see anything, just a practice member and footing if Hoyer gets released. Oh, okay. I'm pretty sure you're talking about Chase Garbers, yeah. In order for us to be able to sign Marcus Peters, we're gonna have to rework some contracts. Some of these guys, Sanjeet, are saying we need to rework Devontae Adams' contract. I don't see that happening. So I mean that's one thing too. I don't know exactly how much money Marcus Peters is going to demand. I hope it's not a whole lot. I mean the guy's on the open market. He's we've seen the best of Marcus Peters already, so we're gonna get a shell of Marcus Peters, but at the same time, he does provide something that the Raiders do not have at this current moment. Digital Press, have an eye out for that on Monday. Yeah, that's what I've heard as well. That he will be in the building on Monday. They're gonna do a workout, physical, all that good stuff. If they like what they see, if they can, reach that a number that they both agree on, then Marcus Peters will be in the silver and black next season. But that's another thing we can jump into as well. Marcus Peters. Raiders content says, like, if they ran a 3-4 defense and would have Tyree Wilson blitzing most of the time, probably. I mean, we'll have to see. Tyree Wilson, the thing I didn't, well, I guess you like it on tape, but we'll just have to see how that translates to the next level. Is the fact that I feel like, especially to get to the quarterback, he relied a lot on his physical attributes. Like I said, 6'7", 275 pounds. He did a lot of the bull rushing to basically bully his way to get to the quarterback, which that can still work in the National Football League, but you can't be a one-trick pony out there. People are, really quickly gonna kind of adjust to that and adapt to that. And that's probably something that he's gonna have to develop into his game, more pass rushing moves, which, hopefully he can, put the time in, put the work in, and, um, add a couple moves to his game. Digital Press Monday, Peters will come in for a physical and a workout. Yep, exactly. Critique says, from what I can tell, we have $2.8 million in cap space right now. Okay. Not, I don't know. Marcus Peters, if Digital Press can if he can put his comments down below. I don't know if he's heard anything of potentially what around how much he could end up getting paid, because that's going to be a big factor too. I don't think this new regime is going to want to overpay for an older running back. Also, I mean, an older cornerback, a guy who um, also a couple years is coming off that ACL tear, and I think last year he missed 4 games. So if we sign him, more than likely he's going to miss some games. But something to keep in mind as well. And basically, according to Mike Dixon, an editor at the Las Vegas Sports today, he basically reported that he believes that next week the Raiders will end up signing Marcus Peters. And let me know what you guys think of Marcus Peters. Is this a guy you'd be excited to bring in? I mean, I understand a lot of people do like him just because he's a guy. I think he's from Oakland. I guess the nostalgia factor when it comes to that. At this point in the way in the offseason, the way this roster is, I mean, we're not going to get a whole lot of great options when it comes to free agents. He's definitely the best available free agent. And, at this point, Marcus Peters was pretty solid in 2020. I mean, if we can get anything close to how he looked in that year, I mean, it's going to be a win for the Raiders. From a scheme standpoint, he does fit this roster pretty well. He excels in press man-to-man coverage. One thing too, he's more of a gambling type of cornerback. I mean, he's one thing that he does do well, and if we do end up signing him, um, the thing I'd be most excited about is his potential to create turnovers, because right now in the cornerback room, I mean, we don't have really that one guy that we can rely on to get interceptions throughout the season. And that's something too that the Raiders have been lacking for a while now, is the fact that we aren't able to create a lot of turnovers. And turnovers are a big thing for a defense as well. I mean, it can really, make you look a lot better than, the statistics show. If you guys remember that 2016 year, that defense, if you look at it statistically, that defense, they gave up a lot of yards. From a standpoint of just, from that standpoint, that defense wasn't that good. But really, the best thing about that defense that year was you had Khalil Mack, had arguably the best year of his career. He was getting sacks, forced fumbles. You also got guys like Reggie Nelson, who had a lot of interceptions. So turnovers can be a big thing for this defense moving forward. And that's one thing that we don't necessarily have right now. Another thing also to keep into consideration is the fact that a veteran like Marcus Peters has a lot of experience in the National Football League. He's been in these playoff games. He's been in the big games before. So could he potentially help the development of a guy like Jacorian Bennett, a player too who you look on his tape, he was really good at when it comes to his ball skills, breaking up passes, just getting involved in disrupting the passing game. So imagine if he can learn that trait from Marcus Peters to basically not just get involved in the pass breakup game, but ultimately come up with some interceptions. That would be huge for us. Raiders content says Peters was also a Raiders fan growing up. He wants to be a Raiders. Is one of his dreams. I mean, yeah. At this point, I definitely could see that. Rick says Las Vegas Raiders going to have big time depth in the secondary with Marcus Peters signing. I'm actually excited. Yeah, I mean, at this point, this defense, that's essentially what they're going to bank on. Like I said, we don't really have a lot of stars on this defense besides Max Crosby, but we do have a lot of depth. If we have a lot of different players that can be good in certain situations, and if one guy goes down, it's not going to be necessarily a huge drop off. I think that's definitely where what I see the Patrick Graham and this defense banking on next year. Rick also asks, what veteran free agent linebacker would be a good fit with our Raiders? I've seen some guys mention Alexander. I also like Kyle Van Noy. I'm pretty sure he's still on the open market, but I do like Kyle Van Noy's his ability on that field. I did want us to sign him last offseason, but the Chargers ended up snatching him up. So those are two guys to keep your eyes on. And the linebacker group. I mean, I do feel like it was a bit under addressed during free agency. I thought we were maybe going to get one potential, instant upgrade and starter to the linebacker group. We didn't necessarily do that. We also Denzel Perryman ended up walking, so I don't know, man. We're gonna have to really bank on Divine Diablo having a huge breakout year. Um, Also Robert Spillane. Hopefully he can show he's worth that 2 year $9 million contract. And also another guy that I'm excited about is Luke Masterson. He did look really good last year in his rookie season. So really, we're gonna have to bank on those things for the linebacker group. Critique says we need corners and vet leadership is needed also. That's true. And Marcus Peters provides both of those things. So he also says we haven't had a ball hawk since Charles Woodson. I mean, yeah, that's true. That's true. I would argue maybe Reggie Nelson was kind of a ball hawk. I mean, he was kind of towards the tail end of his career, but in that 2016 season, I remember I think he had like 7 interceptions. But yeah, we definitely need somebody out there that can create turnovers. That's something that we really need for this defense. Raiders content. Do you think the Raiders will have a top 10 defense this year? What's your opinion on that? I do not think the Raiders are going to have a top 10 defense. I think, and this is a good question too, because not necessarily I guess you could always ask, what necessarily is a top defense? Like, are you talking about ranking when it comes to, total yards? Are you talking about red zone, etc.? I think me personally, I hope I'm wrong, but I think this defense, I could see it struggling, maybe the first month or two of the season. We do have a lot of young players out there. But this defense, potentially could be one that, especially with, Tyree Wilson maybe getting better as the season goes along, same with Byron Young, same with, Jacorian Bennett, Christopher Smith, all these young guys, if they can, start to get better towards the end of the season, maybe it could be a defense that towards the tail end starts to get hot. And really what I'm looking for this defense is I don't really care about yards, total yards allowed and stuff like that. For me, my biggest thing is the defensive line, can we create pressure on the quarterback on third down? We need to be really good on third down. And I want us to be really good in the red zone too, which is something that we've struggled with for a while. But that's kind of what I see with the season. I see this defense struggling to start, but it could be a defense that as it continues, as the season goes on, starts to get a lot better. I'd like to see Woodson coming as the head coach. Damn. I don't know about that, man. He doesn't have any head coaching experience. I'm kind of over just trying to bring in former Raiders, players or former Raiders coaches like Gruden or stuff like that. I'm just kind of more, whoever is the best man for the job, whoever has the best idea moving forward. And I know probably a lot of you guys don't like to hear this, but I think McDaniels is here to stay. I think he's going to be here at least 2 more years, unless next year is a complete shit show. But one thing you got to consider too is you got to think about, why did Mark Davis give John Gruden that 10-year contract? I mean, we understand. I mean, Mark Davis really did like John Gruden, but I think mainly it was because he wants stability within this franchise. I think he kind of saw towards the tail end of his father, the late great Al Davis. I think he kind of saw that, it wasn't a good situation for the Oakland Raiders back then, because it seemed like every year you had a new head coach. So that's not the way to run a well-run organization, and that just causes a lot of uncertainty for players coming in, whether or not they want to sign with the Raiders. So I think Mark Davis is trying to look for that coach that can be here for 4 or 5 years. And I think that's mainly why he ended up signing McDaniels and Ziegler. I think they convinced him potentially building something for the future. And I think he's going to give them. I think he's going to give them time. Like I said, I think he's going to be here at least 2 more seasons, unless something terrible happens next year, which we'll just have to see. Raiders content. Our biggest problem in this division is tied with Travis Kelce. The real question is there anyone that can cover Travis Kelce consistently? Because I haven't seen anybody able to do that yet. Yep, I mean that's 100% facts. And to answer your question, I think no. I don't think there's anybody on this roster that can stop Travis Kelce. To be honest, there's an argument to be made that there's nobody in the National Football League that has an answer for Travis Kelce. I mean, he's the guy's a monster out there. Him and Mahomes is just a deadly duo. We did draft Amari Burney, who is supposed to be more of a hybrid coverage linebacker. I did watch some of his film. Um, I think he'll make his way on his roster, but I don't know. I didn't see his tape and see like, oh wow, this guy could match up really well against Travis Kelce. I didn't really do that. One guy to maybe keep your eye on that could maybe do well, at least good enough against Travis Kelce could be Marcus Epps. In the Super Bowl last year, the Eagles did run a decent amount of plays with where Marcus Epps was guarding Travis Kelce one-on-one. Kelce did win a couple reps. He did have one touchdown on him in the red zone. But, Marcus Epps did also have a couple other reps where he looked good out there. So that's a guy I think they're gonna try to utilize against Kelce, especially in the red zone. But the biggest thing with Travis Kelce, I think, is you're not gonna necessarily find somebody to stop him, but the biggest thing is can you contain him? Can you neutralize him? Raiders content. What's your prediction for the Raiders win and loss this year? My prediction personally, 11 wins and 6 losses, and we make the playoffs. Wow. Yeah, you're a lot higher than most people are on this team. 11 and 6 would be a great record for us. I had the season prediction for me was 7 and 10. Maybe the floor, the ceiling I could see for this team is like 9 and 8, which you could maybe sneak into the playoffs. But I don't know. There's a lot of question marks for this team moving forward. The biggest thing too is going to be Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, if Jimmy Garoppolo can stay healthy, if he can continue the trend of being good on third down, being good in the red zone, if Jacobs can come back, if we can, have a dominant running game as well, with all these new weapons we got on offense too. I like the ability of Trey Tucker to potentially, add a lot more wrinkles to this offense. With a lot of pre-snap motions, jet sweeps, fly sweeps, stuff of that nature. We also got Michael Mayer. If all those things happen, if this defense, like I said, is at least, middle of the pack, we could be 11 and 6, but, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to have to go our way. It's always been like that. Raiders content, whether it was Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez, Travis Kelce, we've not been able to stop tight ends to save our lives. That's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, it sucks, man. It's I wish Travis Kelce would get traded or something, but Critique says I think we're stuck with him. I'm pretty sure he's talking about head coach Josh McDaniels. Shout out to Duke Rose, Raiders, Raiders. Laugh out loud. Raiders content. I rewatched the film for the Super Bowl. Marcus Epps, definitely good. Not keep up with Travis Kelce. We'll be in trouble if that's their plan next year. I kind of, I did see a couple. Like I said, I saw kind of. I didn't think he was terrible out there. I mean, the touchdown he did gave, it did kind of look like maybe he slipped. Remember too, there's a lot of complaints about the field that day, but at the end of the day, no excuse. I mean, he did give up that touchdown, but ultimately, what they're probably going to try to do with Travis Kelce is, give him different looks. Give a couple snaps, put Marcus Epps on him. A couple snaps, put maybe Amari Burney, which I don't know. We'll have to see how he can translate. But they're going to want to give him different looks. Maybe try Trayvon Merrick again, even though last year it looked like he struggled tremendously against him. So. David says, I think he tanked last year. The play calling in the second half of those games was insane. I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, if you're gonna tank, why not tank like correctly, right? I mean, we still went 6-11. Like, if you're gonna tank, like, yo, do it good, man. Go 1-16, right? Go 2-15. Let's if we're gonna tank, I mean, let's get Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. I don't know. If they're gonna tank, maybe it'll be this season where there's gonna be a lot of good quarterbacks coming out. Caleb Williams, Drake Mays. I could definitely see. I mean, I'm obviously talking way too early, but I could definitely see that if Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt early and he's out for the remainder of the season, and Aiden O'Connell don't look good out there, and even in that situation, it might not even be a case where they're tanking, like purposely losing. It might more than anything just be a case of this team is not very good. Raider critique, Aiden O'Connell, I trust. Hey, man, you better than me because I don't really I mean, I'm not super high on him, to be honest with you. But he could potentially be a good system quarterback, which that's probably what Josh McDaniels was looking for. But me personally, I wanted a mobile quarterback. I think that's the way to roll nowadays in the NFL. David, my personal belief is McDaniels is going to tank again this season, and I'm not happy about it at all. That's a good point. Like I said, if we're going to tank, I could potentially see it being this season if Jimmy Garoppolo ends up getting hurt. That's something to keep into consideration. But, at that point, I don't think anybody's going to be very happy. But I don't know. It's kind of a double-edged sword. I mean, Josh McDaniels can only tank if he's, well assured that Mark Davis is giving him 3 to 4 years to do his job. Because, if we go 3-14 next year, I mean, the fan base is gonna come after him. They're gonna want him fired. But we'll see. Kevin Lurker, how are you doing, man? Good to see you. What's good, Alex? Nothing much, man. Just talking some good Raiders football. Raider critique tank for Caleb Williams. I don't know, man. Caleb Williams. I mean, I definitely haven't done a lot of film on him, but definitely he's the top-rated quarterback. But I don't know. I'm also kind of concerned. It seems like he might be kind of an asshole out there. Like he may not be the most mature guy out there, which it's definitely a red flag for your franchise quarterback. But there's no doubt that the talent is there. Do you think we drafted any rookies that could be rookie of the year next season? That's a good question. Let me think about it. Tyree Wilson, I don't see being rookie of the year. Maybe Michael Mayer, but then again, I don't see them giving the award to a tight end. But I do have a lot of high expectations for Michael Mayer. Besides that, I don't know. Besides that, more than likely, I don't see anybody being the rookie of the year. Duke Rose, as a Bronco fan, this division used to be between us and you guys. Now it's the Whack Chiefs. I support your channel. Hey, man, I appreciate that. I mean, good to see you here, man. And yeah, I did not know you were a Broncos fan, but hey, I appreciate you supporting the channel. And yeah, that's one thing that we can all agree on in this division is we're sick and tired of the Kansas City Chiefs, running this division. We're sick and tired of Mahomes doing whatever he wants. And yeah, it's sick. Raiders, yes sir. Raiders content. I could see Aiden O'Connell being rookie of the year if Jimmy G goes down early. Wow, man, that's a bold take. I mean, that'd be crazy. But that would actually be, if that happened, that'd be great for the Raiders. I mean, you can definitely make the argument after that Aiden O'Connell is the future quarterback, the future franchise quarterback on this team. Duke Gross says, how you feel about Josh Jacobs? I mean, I understand both situations. I understand Jacobs need to get paid, but I think the Raiders, are financially, it's a smart move to not pay the running backs, to be honest with you. But ultimately, I think Jacobs was going to be back next year. I hope he can continue to ball out, but to be honest, I don't see him being here after next season. I don't. It's just a lot of things going on, and it's just unfortunate, man. Nobody's paying running backs, and I don't think the Raiders are in a situation where we should try to switch up and pay the running back. I don't think that'd be a wise decision for us. But we'll see what ends up happening with Jacobs. I have to trust Aiden O'Connell because I do not trust Garoppolo will stay healthy. Fair point. I mean, I'm hoping. I think Garoppolo will probably miss a couple games, but as long as he doesn't miss, 8 games or whatever, that I'll be fine with that. If he misses, 2-3 games a season, we could be good. But we'll just have to see, man, because it depends how well this O-line is going to protect them. Also, too, you look at it, Kyle Shanahan, that offense. I mean, it's not just Jimmy Garoppolo has been getting injured. I mean, a lot of quarterbacks in that system have gotten injured. So something also, we'll see. Aiden O'Connell had the best accuracy out of any of the quarterbacks in this draft with 70% accuracy. That's the kind of quarterback we need, is somebody who can be consistent. That is true, but look at another guy too. I did a film breakdown on a lot of those reads. I mean, sometimes he makes beautiful throws and beautiful reads, but then the next play he's thrown into double coverage and throwing a pick six. But like I said, I just from his skills and tape alone, I wasn't super impressed from him. But Josh McDaniels may be the quarterback that he wants to develop and basically be a system type of quarterback, which could potentially work out for McDaniels. Because also, Mac Jones didn't look that bad under Josh McDaniels, and it seemed like Josh McDaniels was kind of like holding his hand along the process. So Rick says Las Vegas Raiders gonna have an unstoppable offense. If Josh Jacobs can't go, Zamir White Zeus is going to take over. If everything goes right for this team, yes, I think this offense could be very, very good. But like I said, Jimmy G's got to stay healthy. The offensive line has to continue to block well against the run. And we do have a lot of good weapons. Jacoby Myers is a solid number 2. Devontae Adams still the best wide receiver in the whole league. We got Michael Mayer. We got Trey Tucker, who adds a different element to this offense. We still got third and Renfro, who's really good at finding the soft spots on the defense, getting those first downs. And Hunter Renfro is also a guy I'm curious to see how he plays next year. Raiders content: Jimmy Garoppolo was fragile with only one season. He made it all the way through as a starter without an injury. I can't necessarily say you're wrong, because that's true. He has had a lot of injuries, but we'll just see, man. Like I said, as long as you don't miss extended period of time, I'm cool with that. And ultimately, I think their plan is excuse me. Ultimately, I think their plan with Jimmy Garoppolo is the fact that he's going to be a bridge quarterback, just the quarterback they need right now to kind of keep the fan base, kind of keep the franchise afloat. He knows the system. He could be a good leader for this team, and maybe like I said, best case scenario, he could do pretty well for us. But for now, you just need a guy that knows this offense and can keep us afloat, while I think ultimately they're trying to find their quarterback of the future, their young quarterback of the future, because that's going to be huge if the Raiders ever win the Super Bowl. I feel like we've seen that's the recipe for success. You draft a good quarterback. After you get that quarterback, you have them for potentially 4 to 5 years on a very team-friendly deal. After that, you can just load up the roster and compete for a championship. But whether that quarterback of the future for them be a quarterback in next year's draft, or whether that be Aiden O'Connell, I don't know. But I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is their long-term future. And ultimately, I'm cool with this. Excuse me. Ultimately, I'm cool with the signing of Jimmy Garoppolo. I really am. Especially at the contract we got him at. Aiden O'Connell is a sleeper. Could be, man. In that case, I'm completely falling asleep on him, man. I'm snoring. Raider Critique says agreed. Carla says if we have Aiden starting, we need Josh. Yep, Josh Jacobs. Every quarterback best friend is a working running game. That is 100% true. Now, I could necessarily argue that it doesn't necessarily have to be Josh Jacobs if the offensive line can continue to put those put those holes out there, those running lanes for these running backs. Then we just need a solid running game. But I do kind of agree with you though. I would feel a lot better out there with Josh Jacobs playing next year. But ultimately, I think he's going to be out there next year. I think he's going to miss training camp. I think he'll be back by week 1. And, after that, I guess we'll have to see how well he performs. I don't think Josh Jacobs is going to miss the entire season. Maybe, he misses a couple games, which, would not be ideal either. I don't think this new regime is going to be I don't think they're going to like that at all. They might, if that happens, they might try to just move on from him. But yeah, I would like to see Josh Jacobs out there for sure. But Raider Nation, that's essentially, for the show, that's essentially everything I wanted to get into. Training camp, the positional battles. We talked a little bit about Josh Jacobs as well. We talked about some other rookies too in training camp. But we're getting towards the end of the show. Before we head out, is there anything you wanted to get some quick thoughts and opinions on before we get this to a conclusion? Let me know down below. And also, too, for the 24 you guys in the chat or anybody that watches this on the replay, if you haven't done so, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Make sure to like, comment. Also, make sure to also put that bell notification bell on as well, because that little button will notify you every time I post a video or when I go live just like this one. So make sure to do that. Raiders content, I believe our offensive line could lead a different running back to the rushing title like they just did with Josh Jacobs. I don't know about that. I mean, I don't see any of these guys, Amir White, Brennan Brown, any of these guys leading the league in terms of rushing, but I could potentially see a very solid running back by committee group where, maybe Zeus is able to get 800, 900, 1,000 yards. Maybe Brennan Brown can get 250, Amir Abdullah 250, Brandon Bolden 100, basically you add everybody up, maybe you get close to what you had with Josh Jacobs, but we'll see. Every great running game complements a decent passing game if it makes them respect both aspects of the football. That's for sure. What we can't afford next season is to have a shitty running game for sure. But on the same hand, Josh Jacobs earned a good contract, and it'd be a shame if the Raiders moved on from him. But if they did move on from him with a trade, which team do you think would get him? I mean, probably the Raiders would try to trade him to an NFC team, if possible. Maybe a team like the Eagles. I assume it's gonna have to be a team, maybe the Bills too. But ideally for them, they probably want to take him to the NFC. There's gonna be a team that's close, that's a contender. But yeah, I mean, also too, I mean, if you try to trade for Josh Jacobs, that's really the only scenario I can see, maybe a contender. And at that point, I don't think you're going to get much of anything for him, especially with the whole contract situation, especially if it gets closer to the season. I think the Raiders are going to lose a lot of leverage for getting a high draft pick. What do you think of Davante Adams' comments on Josh Jacobs? I did watch a video on that. I didn't think much of it. I mean, it kind of sounds like he's kind of like he definitely wants him to come back next season, but it seemed like just a normal comment to me. I mean, he basically let him know a little bit about the process for the contract negotiation, but he did also kind of mention the fact that he said something to the I forgot exactly what he said. He said something to the fact that that it's basically what to expect and things of that nature. But yeah, didn't see a whole lot, unless I'm missing another comment that he just spoke on, today or yesterday. But that's what I saw from Davante Adams' comment. If we get stuck throwing the ball 48 times a game, we become one-dimensional. So if Jacobs doesn't show up, Zamir White, Brennan Brown are going to have to take that load. Facts. Yeah, we can't. This offense is not built to be one-dimensional. We have to be balanced. Dominic 5, what's good with you, man? He says, what's up, Alex? Hey, man, good to see you. Carla Jenkins says, once in a while you get 2 1,000-yard rushers in the backfield. It would not hurt my feelings. Yo, 100%, man. I loved last season how we were, pounding the rock. We were a run-first team. We were more of a smash-mouth football team. I hope we can continue that trend next season. I really like that from our team last year. And that also can help your defense tremendously. If you can win the time of possession battle, you can keep your defense a little bit more fresh out there. Not let them get as tired as much. James says, I see Eagles in the top 2 to get Josh Jacobs. Yeah, I would think that would be one of the teams that really want to go out for him. But Raider Nation, we're about an hour and 20 minutes in. We're getting towards the end of the show. Like I said, anybody that's new, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Make sure to hit that bell notification as well. Training camp is right around the corner. Preseason is right around the corner as well. We're going to definitely do more live shows in the future, so make sure to have those notifications on. And then, yeah, we'll definitely, stay in touch, Raider Nation. But, without further ado, we'll see you guys in the next one. Make sure to take care and, go Raiders.
Jacobs is on his way. The Raiders are going to win this game.
By scores.
Then after you have great coaches, you get great players. You have a great organization, and you tell them one thing: just win, baby.